Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today is a 22-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department. She served as a patrol officer, undercover narcotics officer, advanced accident investigator, tactical officer, and the first female sniper on the Dallas SWAT team. She received commendations and recognitions from the Texas House of Representatives, the International Association of Women in Police, and the Dallas Police Department and community. She is now an award-winning mystery writer. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Anita Dickason.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be here, and it's nice to finally get to meet you.
Thank you, Anita. And as always, our opening question is, what took you so long to write your first book?
Well, as you can see from the bookshelves, and I've actually got a duplicate of another one on the other side of me, I've been an avid reader most of my life. But becoming a writer was never on the horizon. It was something that I never had any aspirations to, not even after I retired from the Dallas Police Department. What I actually did is I started an accident reconstruction business. And I set up a website, I set up a company, and I got a phone call one day that actually literally changed everything as far as my life was concerned. It was one of those things where you said yes, and you look back and you think, that took me down a completely different path. The call was from a producer of a television series out in California. And it was a new series that they were doing about investigating into unsolved crimes, mysteries and type thing. And they were looking for an accident reconstructionist like myself that could come on tape and talk about an accident that happened back in 1966. This was the death of a witness to the Kennedy assassination. His name was Lee Bowers Jr. He was in the railroad tower overlooking Dealey Plaza on the day that Kennedy was killed. And 3 years later, he died in an automobile crash just south of Midlothian, Texas, which is a small town several south of Dallas. And over the years, everybody had built his death into this conspiracy that he was killed because of what he saw that day. And that was going to be their first episode that they were going to air. This was back in 2013 when the 50th year anniversary of President Kennedy's death. At first, I said no. I wasn't interested in the project, and the reason is that they were going to be filming within about 3 weeks. And I knew nothing about the accident. I was not about to go on camera and talk about something I knew nothing about. So I told them, I said, no, I wasn't interested in it. And they said, well, would you at least take a look at our project and our material? And I said, yes, that's the yes that turned everything around. Well, they sent me their material, and it included all of the permits from the Texas Department of Transportation to shut down the freeway coming out of Midlothian, all of their schedule, everything that goes into taping an episode, along with a video that Geraldo Rivera did back in the middle 90s on the same topic. And in this video, this man is standing out on the freeway and he's pointing to this bridge and saying, well, this is where Lee Bowers was killed. It took about 10 minutes for me to all of a sudden realize, wait a minute, that couldn't have happened. The highway and the bridge didn't exist in 1966. And what I subsequently discovered is the state didn't even buy the land for the highway expansion until after Bowers was killed. Now they had my attention. Could I find the right location? And that's kind of what led to everything. I got so involved with the project, I had enough material to write a book, which is what I did. And this was my very first book that I published, and that's what kickstarted a whole new career for me.
Well, it's just fascinating to me. And, you know, all of America is just hooked on these true crime series. So I think you're in the right niche.
Well, it was a very fun project. I've put in a lot of hours researching into all of the elements. And what was so difficult about it is I had to go back in time. I had to look at everything from what was actually real in 1966. You know, you had a guy on a tractor that allegedly saw the accident. Well, he didn't have a cell phone. You know, he's got to take his tractor and head back to his house to where he can get onto a landline and to get somebody out on this accident. All of those little minor details like that played a role, a very real role. And that's what when you're doing a cold case construction, that's what you have to look at, is those minute details as to how it could have all come about. And so that's basically the premise of the book.
Well, you certainly have the credentials to write detective stories, mysteries, even horror stories with all you've experienced in your 28-year policewoman career. So do any of your books contain fragments of real life experiences?
Oh my God, yes. My books are littered with experiences, whether it's characters, the plots, what I did over my law enforcement career, all that experience and knowledge has become the basis for the inspiration for the plots and the characters. And what I say is I write about what I know, cops and crime, and that's my comfort zone.
Well, you've certainly become very prolific, because you didn't start writing until what age? And now you have how many books?
I started at 69. That's when I wrote my first book, and that was back in 2013. And so 10 years later, I've written 9 fictional novels, 1 nonfiction, and number 11, another fiction book, is about 3/4 done.
That's just amazing to me. Once you write these manuscripts, and we have to know if you're a morning or a night person, when you get all those words on paper, then how do you proceed? Do you have a publisher, a small press, or do you self-publish?
Well, that's another interesting aspect of all of this. When I published the Bowers book, JFK Assassination, Eyewitness, Rush to Conspiracy, I was like a lot of other authors in that first book. Okay, I've written it. What do I do with it now? And I was absolutely clueless about publishing. That was a whole new era, or research for me. And I ultimately ended up going with what would now be known as a vanity publisher. They were a credible one, a subsidiary of Simon Schuster. But what I discovered throughout that whole process was several things. One, I didn't own my book. There's 3 components to owning a book. One is your cover copyright, one is the distribution rights, and then the copyright. Of course, I owned the copyright to the content, but I didn't actually own the published book. And I also discovered that they didn't do anything that I couldn't do myself. So what actually happened is I ended up with a whole new career, not only as an author, but I'm a publisher and I'm also a graphics designer. And I design not only my covers for my books, but I've designed covers for other authors. Somebody can hand me a manuscript and I can turn it into a published book for them. So it has become that, yes, when I said to that producer, I'll take a look at it, really launched a whole new career for me that was more than writing. And it's a toss-up whether I like writing more or the graphic design. So yes, to answer your question, I publish my own books, and that way I have absolute control of them.
Well, you're so multi-talented. Not all of us can do that. You know, we want to write. We don't even want to promote our own books. And even the big 5 publishers are now requiring their authors to do their own marketing.
They are.
Have you found anything that works for you, or maybe something you've tried that hasn't worked?
What I have found is that it's a steady building process. It's not going to happen with the first book. Even if you go the traditional route, and I do a lot of public speaking about the ways to publish a book, and that there's basically 3 paths that an author can follow. But if you go the traditional route, even, there's no guarantees that that first book is going to be a success. As you said, they are starting to require the authors to play a more active role in the publication and the advertising process through newsletters, websites. And like what I have done over the 10 years, it's just been a building. You take one step, you build it, you take another step, and you just keep progressing with that until, you start getting known. Every day there are so many books being published. And it doesn't matter if you're traditional, if you've gone the hybrid route, or you're doing it yourself. Nobody's going to know your book is there unless you start telling them. And that's the important thing.
And how are you telling them?
Oh my gosh. I'm on social media. And that was something that was new for my generation. Social media was, a whole new ball game. And I wasn't really particularly enthralled about becoming part of the social media set, but I have. And so I'm very active on Facebook. I'm very active on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Those are my 3 primary ones. I create videos. I do my own videos. I do book trailers, advertising videos. I have 2 YouTube channels. One of the YouTube channels is for my books, my book trailers and everything that I produce for those. And that's called My Author's World. The other one, Book Cinema channel, is for anything else that's bookish. And I work with a lot of other authors helping to promote their books, and anything that doesn't directly deal with my books goes over on my Book Cinema channel. So that has been a very valuable asset. I've also developed a lot of links with other authors and writing groups. And another thing that I'm part of, about 2 years ago, I went in with 5 other authors, and we set up a new website called Mystery Review Crew. So I am one of the crew, and part of that is working with authors to help them publish and see how their books can get reviews and that type of thing. I'm also linked in, as you are, to Lone Star Literary Life and Christine Hall. I have my Texas Reads Mystery over on her website. So all of that, what I found is it's making me known by helping other people. And that is a very important part, I think, of, not only promoting your book, but also promoting who you are. And I found it to be very, very rewarding. I love working with other authors.
This is such a generous community. The writing community is unlike any other industry, I think, and that we all share with each other, and we want to help each other along the path.
Yeah, there are no rivalries that I have come across within working with other authors. And the friendships that I have built have exceeded anything I would have ever expected could happen in retirement. You stop and think about that. All of a sudden, you're in retirement, and all of those people that you have worked with, you've made those friends and those contacts, they it's not that you ignore them, but the reality of it is they just kind of go away. And this opened up a whole new world. And oh my gosh, I'm loving it. I've got, people that friends in other states and over in England. And it's been such a rewarding 10 years. It's just been amazing.
I agree. And that's why I call it writing in life's sweetest third, because we have started a new career for ourselves, and it is just very rewarding. But I don't know how you have enough hours in the day to do all you do and to be as prolific as you are with all these novels that you're writing.
That's the downside of working out of your own office with your own computer. You have no restrictions. Okay, I have to be there by 8 o'clock because I start work and I get off at 5, I'm done. You have it 24/7. And it's just a matter of prioritizing. It's just a matter of prioritizing. And it's, you work on what's coming in next, and then you move to the next one. And in between, I work on writing the book. A lot of times I'll be sitting and watching TV, and I've got my computer on my lap, and I'm typing away.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the passage that you've brought to share today? Set it up the scene for us, and then read so that we can hear your tone and voice in the book.
I started writing the crime thrillers, and they're the Tracker series. And I created a unique FBI unit in the first books that I wrote. And along the way, I thought, I'm going to try my hand at a cozy mystery. What I didn't realize was what a difference in writing that took. My crime thrillers, my plots focus on the crime and how my characters solve it. In the cozy mystery, my focus is on the characters and how the crime has affected them. And it's a complete 180 around. So it was a bit of a gamble for me to do the cozy mystery series, the Tori Winters series. And I have 2 books now, Deadly Keepsakes and Murder's Legacy is the last book I've written. And surprisingly, they did better than what I expected. But for today, we had talked about this, and is considering it's October. And for any of your viewers, let me say, believers beware. We have a Friday the 13th this month. And what I discovered, I did an article on superstition origins for Mystery Review Crew. And I discovered that on Sunday, if the month starts on Sunday, you have a Friday 13th. So we had a Sunday start with this. But this is Sentinels of the Night. This was my first one, and it has a paranormal to it. And I'm going to read just a little bit of the first chapter. And you would ask if part of me was in the book, and I will explain in a moment. But Sentinels of the Night is an FBI tracker novel. I ride the night wind. Evil does not escape my vigilance. The black-clad woman melded into the shadows cast by a line of idle railroad cars and diesel engines. Even the barrel of the pistol, gripped tight in one hand, failed to reflect the faint illumination from the light poles scattered in the deserted railroad yard. Got him. 2 rows from the control tower. He's headed toward the fence. Where are you? She whispered into her mic. A voice softly echoed through her earpiece. I'm on the road to your right. Focused on the man striding ahead of her, FBI agent Kat Morgan eased her way over the gravel surface as she glided from car to car. Certain this was the man dubbed by the media as the rail killer, her grim determination pushed back the discomfort of the sweat-soaked shirt under her vest and the rancid odor of oil and diesel that hung in the humid air. Over the last 4 months, she'd chased the killer who rode the rails in empty boxcars. He'd find a house near the tracks and brutally murder the occupants for money and supplies, then hop another train. After plotting locations, dates, times, and railroad schedules, she discovered a pattern in his movements. While Kat had predicted the killer's next move, it wasn't in time to prevent the murder of an elderly couple. This time, they were ready. At dusk, teams of agents moved into position along several miles of track around Beaumont. Kat and her partner, Ben Kennedy, had drawn the short straw for the railroad yard and set up surveillance in the control tower. Near midnight, they spotted a man jump from a boxcar of a passing train. Climbing down from the tower, they lost sight of him and had split up, working their way along the rows of cars. Kat picked up the pace and needed only a few more yards to close the gap. Then her foot slipped on the edge of a pothole. At the loud clatter of rocks, the man glanced over his shoulder. His gaze locked onto her before he leaped between two cars. Damn, he spotted me. He crossed the track. Kat jumped the rail, climbed over a coupler, and paused to scrutinize the deep shadows cast by the cars on the next row. Where did you go? I'm behind you, Ben said. When rocks clattered again, along with a grunt and a couple of cuss words, she figured Ben must have stepped in the same hole. A flash of movement at the far end of the cars sent her racing along the tracks. Ben's footsteps pounded behind her. Danger! The word exploded in her mind. A piercing screech resounded, and two large owls, their powerful talons outstretched to strike, swooped toward her head. Kat shouted, "Take cover," and dropped to the ground. Then did what the railroad yard supervisor told them not to do. She rolled over the track, and under a car as a shot ricocheted off the metal rail.
Oh, you had us right there in that scene. That was great.
Okay, now, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story, that actually happened, except I was not chasing a serial killer. Guy stole a vehicle and decided to bail out in a railroad yard close to Dallas, and my partner and I were chasing him through the railroad yard. And the second part of that story is that there was actually a man riding the rails doing something similar to my character in the book when I was on the SWAT team. And we actually, my partner and I spent time with the railroad yards people, learning how to move and work around trains because we were going to be setting up surveillance. So a little bit of both levels of experience went into creating that opening scene for the book.
Do you have to complete any research before you begin writing, or do you just use those real life experiences to guide your path?
Both, but I do a lot of research. Even though my plots and my characters are, inspired a lot by what I did for, with the police department, they're also grounded in fact. And I do kind of a unique thing at the end of my book. I have the story behind the fiction where I explain to the reader how the story came about. And that's where my research comes in, because my books are all based on fact. In this case, with Sentinels of the Night, owls are considered by many religions, and especially the Native American Indians, as the messengers of death, and the owl's screech is the sign of a violent death. And even to the extent that when you die, you cross over the owl's bridge to the other side. In 1900, there was a woman, Alice C. Fletcher. Oh, I would love to have known this woman. She was ahead of her time for a woman. She was an ethnologist, anthropologist, social scientist. She spent time with the American Indians, documenting their culture, and she actually published a book. 1900, she published this book about the Pawnee Hako ceremony, and she translated the chants that they used in that ceremony, and one of them dealt with the owls. And I used part of that chant for the basis for this book. So that was one of the facts that I explained. But yes, Operation Navajo is a plot against the Federal Reserve, the assassination of the Federal Reserve chairman. That took a lot of research into scenes. I had a scene in Wyoming. I had the Federal Reserve building. Another one, and this one strikes at home here with Texas A&M and University of Texas. They jointly are involved with a financial wealth management company and owned quite a bit of gold that was stored in a bank in New York City. The governor of Texas, in fact, signed a bill to create Texas's version of Fort Knox, which is now up and operational, a gold depository, to move that gold from New York City back to Texas. 22 tons of gold. So there was a lot of research for that book. So yes, to answer your question, there is a lot of research. And especially if I'm working with a town where I have based the story, I put those tidbits at the end to kind of give the reader a feel for exactly what went into the book.
Well, what does writing success mean to you or look like to you personally?
That's a very good question, and one that I get hit with a lot when I'm dealing with talking to writing groups and whatnot. What I tell them is that you have to have a reason to write other than to make money. If you think you're going to make money, don't quit your day job. You need other reasons to not have too high of expectations with your books. And for me, it's just writing a story that someone enjoys reading. And when I get a comment from someone that, oh, hey, I read your book, I absolutely loved it. For me, that's what it's all about. That's where I get my satisfaction.
Me too. And I had a granddaughter who read one of my books for an assignment in school, and she told me, she said, you know, Juju, not everybody's grandmothers write books. And that to me was my legacy. You know, I felt so proud of that.
Well, it is. It's a legacy that you are able to leave to your children because those books don't go away. And when I look at all the books that I've kept and read and reread and reread, they are a lasting legacy. So that's a very, very good point.
Does your family support your career as a writer? How do they?
Oh my gosh, yes.
How do they feel about you leaving such an important job that you had with the police department and becoming a writer?
Oh, they've been supportive all the way through. They really have. And I've got one daughter that she's very actively involved in helping me with a lot of my graphics and whatnot. And so we do a lot of collaboration. But yes, the support has very, very much from my family as far as the whole process is concerned, giving me ideas and talking to me about the characters, and they've been a good sounding board. I can give them the books and say, okay. And I know they're going to be honest with me. They are my hardest critics.
What about all the people you've worked with over the years?
Surprisingly, the book has allowed me to reconnect with a lot of them, especially on Facebook. A lot of the officers that I worked with, they're starting to see, and I'm getting requests coming in for friends and whatnot. So from that standpoint, it's also allowed me to reconnect with a lot of officers that I've worked with, and some of them are writing books, and we've shared experiences and help support each other's books by, posting and advertising and doing things. So yes, that's been another very, very positive side effect, or well, not a side effect, but outcome, you might say.
Well, I've just been overwhelmed by the number of us who are writing in retirement. I've interviewed doctors and attorneys and MBAs and just such interesting people, who are sharing another part of their life with the world. So I find that very exciting.
Well, you've probably seen the same thing that I have in talking and working with other authors is what comes through in their books is what they actually did for so many years. You know, if you're a doctor, you're kind of tending toward those kinds. It's your comfort zone. I have one author friend that she writes children's books. She's a therapist, speech therapist for children, and her books actually accent certain sounds so that the child is repeating that sound over and over. Just, so many stories like that of how they're using their own life experiences to entertain and teach.
Well, Anita, as always, our last interview question is, our writers over 50 are quite a unique set. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
It's never too late. It is never too late. That's a motto that I have had throughout my careers. I was the oldest woman to graduate the academy. I graduated at 44 when most of the officers my own age were looking at retirement, so at 44, I started a 22-year career. I qualified for the Dallas SWAT team at age 50, which is, for a man is phenomenal, but even for a woman, because it is the most difficult position in the department. And I have done the same with my books. So I would tell anyone who is over 50, it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 70. If you're interested in writing, just start. It's never too late.
That's great advice for all of us today. And Anita, I'm just so thrilled that you were here with us, because you have led such a fascinating life and have such a fascinating life still to live ahead of you, with all of these wonderful books that you are just churning out for all of us to read. So thank you so much for being with us today, because we're now excited to say that you're one of our authors over 50.
Well, thank you so much for hosting it and allowing me to be part of your author community.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's D-A-I-L-Y, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.